Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to Little Ray's Nature Center here in Ottawa. My name's Lee, and today we have another adventure. We're sticking around the aquatic habitats. Yesterday we did our Asian water monitor. Her name was Mrs. Kipling, and you guys got to see her in her habitat there. We fed her a little bit of beef and that. Today we're going down to the southern parts of the United States, where we're actually going to be bringing out the largest freshwater turtle, and if not one of the heaviest of the freshwater turtles. And that is an animal that is really prehistoric looking, and I love working with him. We've had this little guy, his name's Smudge. We've had Smudge since he was just a little guy. He was left with us from somebody who had him as a pet. So let me pick Smudge up and show you what he looks like. And right here we have Smudge. So Smudge over here is an alligator snapping turtle. And the name alligator snapping turtle came from the three ridges down their back. Very, very spiky looking, kind of like in back scoots and scales of an alligator. And that's where the name came from. Now, alligator snapping turtles, they can get to a fair size. They can get up to about 4-foot shell length. That's from just behind the head to the base of the carapace over there. And they can get up to well over 200 pounds in weight. They're massive turtles. They do spend about 90% of their life in the water. And that's because these guys do have a very well-developed carapace, but a very underdeveloped plastron. The lower part of their shell is like a cross on the belly, and these guys can't actually hide inside their shell, very similar to that of the common snapping turtle found here in Ontario. Now, these guys don't have any teeth. They have a hard bony ridge like a parrot's beak, and you can see that his Smudge over here has got his mouth open. At the moment, because we've picked him up and taken him out of the water, he's just telling us if you come any closer or too close to me, I may take a way of defending myself. I may have to try and bite you. But what's interesting with these turtles is that they live in the water and they'll sit still for long periods of time on the bottom of these ponds, streams, lakes, and swamps. And what they'll do is they'll sit just like he's doing right now. They'll keep that mouth open. And if you look on the bottom jaw, you've got that little pink piece of skin, which is actually his tongue. And that's a modified tongue that he uses to lure fish closer to him. And that's a large part of these guys' diet. Is actually fish and fish corpses, so bodies of fish that have died in the rivers. And what will happen if that fish swims down to that tongue thinking that it's a worm, that's when these guys can slam those jaws shut. They've got extremely powerful jaws, about 1,000 pounds of pressure per square inch in those jaws. Very, very sharp beak, so you definitely don't want to get your finger in there. And people think they're pretty slow. These guys are extremely fast when they actually want to snap. They've got these very small beady eyes on the side of the head. Their vision isn't the greatest, but they do work a lot on smell. And these guys will eat carrion as well as a number of other things. They will eat crustaceans, they will eat snakes, they'll eat small water birds, they'll eat aquatic rodents that swim around there. So they do have quite a large variety of different types of food in the wild. Here at the zoo, we do give him a good range of food. He gets crustaceans, we give him crustaceans, he gets fish, he gets chicken, like whole chicks, he gets whole rodents, he gets fish, he gets a good variety in his diet here at the zoo. Now, these guys, they will only reach sexual maturity when they're about 12 years of age. And males generally get larger than females, but a big female can have up to about 50 eggs at a time. And those eggs will hatch about 110 to 140 days later. And this is when these guys are at their most vulnerable stage. That's when most of predation happens. Because when they're tiny, they hatch out about the size of a matchbox. And that's when they make their way down to the ponds and streams, and that's where different mammals and birds will eat them. But as these guys get bigger and bigger, they become less predated upon because there's nothing really big enough to take these guys. Now, a big alligator might take a young one on, but as these guys get to their 4-foot shell size, there's not even a big alligator would take one of these guys on. And there's even been cases where alligator snapping turtles have taken the foot or a leg of an alligator. So these guys are pretty interesting. We have 3 of them. This is our smallest one we have. We have 2 bigger ones. One lives with our female alligator lady over there, and we have our female that lives at the moment. She's actually got a new home. She will be leaving us soon, but they're much bigger. They're about 50 pounds, almost 60 pounds right now, and they're in the other habitats. But these guys are just really amazing animals. They are a threatened species of turtle, habitat depletion. They are caught from the wild and taken to be sold as pets in the pet trade, and that's a big threat for them. But they're also, people will eat turtles. They turn them into turtle soup and gumbo and things like that. So these are all posing threats to these amazing creatures. So we always want to try to learn to conserve the animals that we have, right? And that's unfortunately for these guys that they are on there. Now, these guys are popular in the pet trade. As I say, people buy them when they're small. And they look like a great pet. But what you have to remember is unless you can give that animal all the space that it needs, they're not the best pet for you, because they need a lot of space, big aquatic pools. They live for over 100 years. They get you over 200 pounds in weight. And a bite from one of these can be pretty painful and damaging to a limb or a hand. So you always want to be cautious of things like that. You never want to hand feed these guys. We always use equipment when we're working with them to feed them. When we hold them like this, we can see he's kind of sitting here nice and calm. We don't move him around or shake him around too much, because these guys do spend a lot of time in the water. Now this guy, as I said, did come to us when he was just a little guy, and it was someone's pet. The big thing with these guys, and turtles in general, whether it be a turtle or a tortoise, when people buy them as pets, they often think that if you keep them in a small habitat, they're going to stay small. But these guys outgrow their habitats. They will get bigger because it goes in their genetics. And then eventually you have to buy a bigger enclosure and a bigger habitat and a bigger habitat. And that's when a lot of people end up getting rid of them, just because they end up getting too big for people to deal with. So it's always, we encourage people to do the right thing. Look at the animal that you're wanting to purchase as a pet, and make sure it fits into your home and your needs, and you can give that animal everything he needs. So we use these guys for our outreach programs. We use them for teaching kids and showing them. They're just such a beautiful animal in their own way, should we say. But you can see they've got these nice flat paddle-like feet. They can walk on land, and often these guys will be on land. The females will leave the water, and she'll go about 50 feet away from the water's edge, is where most of the nesting sites are actually, or the eggs are laid. And that's just to help prevent from flooding areas and things like that, because obviously the eggs will be vulnerable to drowning. And these guys, the sex is determined by temperature as well. So if you've got a nest that's a lot warmer than normal, you'll have more males in it than females. If you've got one that's cooler, you'll have more females than males. So their genders are determined by temperature. So that's quite interesting with these little guys. So normally this guy's submerged in the water, and sometimes because they sit so still on the bottom of the water like that for such a long time, they've even in the wild will have plants and algae growing on their shells. So they really blend in very well with their camouflage. But they're not really a threat to people. If you go into a lake or a swamp, they're going to swim away from you. They don't want to be around us. They're not going to come forward and attack you. But they may get caught on a fishing line. If you're an avid fishing person, go out there and throw it out there. But a bait, they may go and grab that. So that might be a surprise for you when you think you've got this big fish on the end of your rod, and you end up pulling it in and you've got a big snapping turtle on the end there. So that's something you always want to watch for.
So Lee, I know a lot of people always ask us if I know we don't get these ones specifically in Ontario, but we get common snappers. How would you pick it up if you ever saw one crossing the road?
That's a great question, and that is a very common question. So if you ever saw a turtle, like especially a snapping turtle, and this time of year we see a lot of snapping turtles moving around, and people are fine picking up a little painted turtle or a little spotted turtle here, but when you get to the bigger snapping turtles, they kind of become a little bit more intimidating to us. And we never really know how to pick them up. But the safest way to do this is if they're on the ground, you don't pick them up by their tail, because their tail has vertebrae all the way down into it. And if you hold this turtle and you actually take the weight of the turtle onto that tail, you could damage that vertebrae, which we don't want to do. So if you look on the back part of the carapace over here, it kind of overhangs. You can kind of get your hands inside there. You can angle them up, and this works for the common snapping turtle. If you work them on your wrist like this, you can actually hold the turtle just like this, and that will help you to safely pick that turtle up. He can't bite you. The only thing you want to watch is bringing it too close to yourself for the weight. You always want to keep it away, because these guys may look like they've got a short neck, but they have a pretty long neck, and they've got a good reach around. So you never want to hold these guys on the side of their shell, because they can come around and try and bite you like that. So you always hold them as far back as possible, giving good weight, and you move them across the road in the same direction that they're going, right? You never want to put them back where they came from, because it's normally a female looking for a place to go lay her eggs. And if you've taken her from the left side and where she came from, and you put her back in there, she's going to turn around and cross back over the road again. So you always want to make sure you put them in the same direction that they're going. Now, if it's a turtle that you're not sure of, or you're too scared to pick them up or take that chance, you can drag them onto a mat of a car and drag the mat across the road, and that'll get them safely across there. There is another way that you can pick up a big snapping turtle, and it's also safe. Kind of looks like it's not, because most people kind of get scared. But if you take your hand and you slide it across the top part of the carapace like this, and you grab him on the underneath behind the back of the head and on the back part of the carapace over here to take the weight, you can now hold this turtle 100% safely. You can see what this guy's trying to do. He's trying to squash my hand between the shell and his head, and that can be a little bit intimidating for some people, but this is another safe way when handling a large snapping turtle because they can't bite you. So it's a great question, and hopefully that'll help you guys if you do come across one in the road. But for this little guy over here, it does bring us to the end of our presentation today. We hope you guys have enjoyed seeing these guys. I love presenting these guys because they're so prehistoric looking, such a weird looking type of turtle. You can see those nice ridges down the back there where the name alligator snapping turtle came from. And just a beautiful animal, and such a great opportunity for us to be able to work with them. So we hope you guys have enjoyed it. If you have any questions, please shoot the questions to us. We love answering them, and I will get that to you guys as soon as I'm done here today. But we hope you guys have a great rest of the day. Stay cool and hydrated out there. It's another hot one today, and we always want to make sure people are cool in that. So we also want to thank everyone for all the support they've been giving us, that on whatever it's been, joining our presentations here at the zoo or supporting us with our GoFundMe page. Follow us on Facebook, get your friends to follow us on Facebook, subscribe to our Twitter page, and
Instagram.
We're on there. We're on Instagram as well, and just keep an eye out. We get these videos going. We met a great guest yesterday. Nell and I were out in Subway, and we're going to get some lunch there, and one of the guests or friends that we've made by doing these Facebook Lives, she walked up to the cash register and she paid for our lunch. We weren't sure what was going on, and she's like, I want to pay for those subs. And then when we went up, she came up, she goes, we follow you guys and we watch you every day on Facebook. So it's awesome to meet people out there. It's heartwarming for us when we see it, and we're glad that everyone is enjoying these videos that we do. So thanks to you guys for all the support you're giving us, and we hope you have a great day. Enjoy the rest of it. From me and Smudge over here, see you later, everybody.